can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. And
Amazing.
actually, it was my fault, not yours.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So we are here today. I'm Candy with Local Tbilisi. We're located in Tbilisi, Georgia, for those of you that don't know, not the state, the country. So we're clear over on the eastern side of Europe, in between Europe and Asia. Love it here, absolutely love it. Have a brand new co-living here in Tbilisi. So if any of you ever decide you want to take a little trip over, once you can actually, get in touch. If you need a place to work, a place to stay, or just want to go out and have a coffee sometime, I'm up for any of the above. So we today have Andrew with us. And Andrew, hi Andrew, welcome. Andrew is going to be talking to us about the Side Hustlers operating system. He is currently putting together and I might mess this up, Andrew, I'll give you a chance to kind of reiterate a little bit of this, but just kind of in a nutshell. I'm not great at introductions, but he's working on a program that will walk you through an operating system for side hustlers. Side hustlers, I would say also probably entrepreneurs, small business owners, anyone in that kind of realm. So super excited to get some good tips from Andrew on that. And before you start, Andrew, I'm going to make you wait. I want to know who everybody else here is. So if we could really quickly kind of go through, tell us your name if it's not already on your thing, where you're currently at, and why you're interested in this. Why did you decide to join us today? So, Nicole, since we were already chatting, you want to start? Nothing like putting you on the spot, right?
Sure, why not? My name is Nicole. I am from Memphis, Tennessee, and currently living here after being in Asia for most of the last 8 years. I am an English teacher, and I am starting my own business, basically helping English language learners to reduce their accent while speaking English, basically enhancing their pronunciation. And I just am looking for some tips to get that business going and hopefully have it replace my full-time income.
Nice, thank you. Dania?
Hi,
You
got it. Yeah, it's Dania. I'm Dania. I am from Portland, but I travel. I'm sitting across the table from Andrew. So we are both in Tbilisi. And I'm here to hang out, but also I have my own business in health coaching. So it's super useful.
Fabulous. Philip, do you want to give us an introduction?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm a web developer. Last time I was in Vancouver, Canada, but I'm from Montreal. And yes, that's it.
Philip, why are you interested in joining us today?
First, I'm interested in everything that Andrew is doing and everything that the local have to offer, like online and probably soon in person. And I really want to get my game up in terms of productivity. And that's why I need Bonnie and Drew. I need you, Candice. So yeah.
Beautiful.
I need a little push back in the back.
I think we all need a push now and then.
Yes.
So, Gabby, are you actually with us?
Hi guys. Yeah, I'm from Romania. I've actually met Andrew and Dania. They're super cool guys. And I guess I just missed hanging out.
That's as good a reason as any, right?
Yep.
Christiane.
Thank you.
Christiane, are you around?
Hi. Yes, hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Or morning for me. I don't know.
Yes.
Everybody's calling from different places. I'm Christian. I have had my own business for the last, almost 10 years now. I'm an attorney and had been running a traditional practice for several years. I've been remote for the last 3, and I'm scaling and just kind of wanting to make sure I have certain systems and tools in place to scale the business, but still maintain my location freedom and time freedom, which I really enjoy. Thanks for having me.
Beautiful. Christian actually gave us a presentation a couple of weeks ago around the legal aspects. If you're interested in things around the legal aspects, that recording is up on Local's YouTube channel. I'm not a video person, so they are completely unedited, and what you see is what you get. So nothing fancy there, but that she gave us some really good information from a legal standpoint, and I'd recommend checking that out as well. So we may have some other people that join us intermittently. And Andrew, the reason I wanted you to wait until last is because I wanted to make sure that everyone got an opportunity, even those that came a few minutes late, got an opportunity to hear you introduce yourself and give a little bit more detail on what you're going to show us today or tell us today. And with that, first of all, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. One of the things that Local strives for is engaging the community. So if any of you have anything that you'd like to share, no matter how big, how small, get in touch with me. We'd love to have new people presenting and sharing their knowledge and their information. If you're not talking, I would ask that you mute yourself. You can stay on video, off video, doesn't matter. I a lot of times will go off video just so I'm not a distraction, because I'm like making notes and doing weird stuff during the programming. So without further ado, off to you, Andrew.
Well, thank you, Candy. And how dare you say you're not good at intros? That was perfect. So I got some slides for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And oh, Candy, can you actually enable the screen share? I think it should be, there's like a security right next to participants. Cool, there we go. Okay, so let me know if you guys can see my screen okay. Just give me a nice little thumb up. Okay, cool. Awesome, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump into this. You know, we got a small group here, so please feel totally free to interrupt, to ask questions. We can make this as interactive as you guys would like. And I am super excited to be presenting this to you guys. So this has kind of been like a little labor of love for me for the last few months here. And it's really important to me to support side hustlers. But before I jump into the system, let me just kind of give a little background about myself. So I'm a serial side hustler or entrepreneur. So I've had various side hustles for probably the last like 10 years. I mean, really since I graduated college. And actually, I'm really excited because yesterday I gave notice to my job, and actually my side hustle, Better Together, is now going to become my main hustle starting on August 1st. And that's just amazing to me. You know, it's been a lifelong dream of mine to be a full-time entrepreneur, but to do the transition well, you know, to not just jump into it, you know, and just be starving artist, but to smoothly and cleanly transition between a day job and a business. So I'm a digital nomad, like a lot of you guys, and I'm a bit of a freedom junkie, you know, so I've been traveling the world full time for 2 years with Dania, who's here, and we don't plan on stopping. So it's just an amazing lifestyle. And the next natural extension of that lifestyle for me is like, well, now how do I run my own business? So I'm the founder of a company called Better Together. And what we specialize in is accountability groups for side hustlers and entrepreneurs. And we also work in corporate wellness. So the same system that I'm showing for you guys, we'll implement versions of this for organizations with the goal of creating more human connections across all borders, both physical and mental, and also empowering our clients to achieve the dreams that matter most. And this is really important to us, especially if we look at, you know, the climate of the world today, especially in the United States. Like, we need to be less polarized, we need to be closer, and we need to communicate more on a more human level and be less polarized. So this is the mission and the soul of Better Together, and it's incredibly important to me. So why side hustlers? And I guess more broadly, why should we create at all? So it's my firm belief that the world becomes a better place when we bring the dreams that are in our hearts into actuality. In other words, if you don't build it, we don't get it. So it's really important to me to encourage as many people as possible to take the jump and to try to build something that's important to them, that's going to impact the world. I think that is a really important thing for us all to do, especially under a more capitalist framework. Also, when you take that jump, when you take that risk, you also give permission to other people to take that risk. So you lead by example. And I developed this operating system from my experience over the last 10 years, but also with my 3 younger brothers of mine who are entrepreneurs themselves. So when I was sat down to write this, and it's turned into an ebook, which is just about done, I wrote it like, what could I have told them a few years ago that I think would have really changed their lives? And so that's where the spirit of this is coming from. And so the principles of the Side Hustlers operating system is, 1, to provide a complete productivity system for side hustlers. But as Candy mentioned in the intro, there's a lot of overlap with entrepreneurs as well. In fact, the only thing different between the two is, you don't have to dedicate a chunk of your day to a day job. The other most important thing is that we have to maximize the limited time that we have in order to maximize our chances for success, especially if you're balancing a day job or some other demands. You have to be ruthless and efficient with the extra time that you have because it is so limited. You can't afford to spend that time, going down a path that is something you're not going to see to its end, or on working on a business task that is irrelevant to your overall strategy. So the system also follows a weekly like sprint cycle, and that'll be familiar for any of you that are familiar to agile software development. And we do this because there's so much information, there's so much opportunity out there, and we need to be able to pivot quickly if the environment changes a little bit. And the last thing is that in the age of distraction, intention is a superpower. And I firmly believe this. So on average, a given individual scrolls through 300 feet of social media content in a given day. That is absolutely insane. And we're just inundated with so much distractions and information that most people are just going to give into it and just start reacting, and they're going to forfeit their intention and their ability to more consciously shape the world. So a lot of the practices that we do in the operating system are built around this principle of cultivating your intention for the life that you'd like to create. Okay, so as side hustlers, and this applies to entrepreneurs as well, here's the main challenges that we face, in my opinion. Number 1 is limited time. So I talked about this a lot in the last slide, but we have to be very, very efficient with the time that we have. We have to treat time like our most valuable resource. And we also have to protect the time outside of work, right? Because work isn't everything. You don't, I'm guessing, want to be someone who's working 12, 14 hours a day. And if we're inefficient and we don't have clear stop times on our work day, we're going to drag that day out indefinitely. So maximize efficiency with limited time. Avoid distractions. It's back to cultivating that sense of intention. And then the number 3 point, this is really personal one for me, but you got to avoid mental crashes. And these are all avoidable. So burnout and overwhelm. If you get really stressed and burnt out or overwhelmed, it can take you days to recover. And someone who's really close to me actually got so burnt out that they had about a 3-month period where they had to recover, where they were just basically, half of their energy. They could barely do physical exercise. We were on vacation one time, and this person felt like they couldn't walk to the beach from their hotel because they're so tired. And it was purely because of stress and a very demanding, intense corporate job. And that when there was a better handle on this person's mindset, they recovered. And these things are totally avoidable if we track our mental states in very specific tasks like we do in this system, week after week. So back to the time is we have to work on the right things. Ooh, that is a good poll. Let me see if I can get that. Okay, yeah, really cool. Wow, for me, I got to go for the distractions. They always get me. Okay. And so we can't work on the wrong things. And this comes down to prioritization. So when we have a list of different projects or directions that we can take our business down, we need to have a clear rubric for flattening these tasks and for normalizing them so we can kind of compare them apples to apples. And I'll walk you through a spreadsheet that we have that will help us work through that process. And yeah, distractions, you know, there's not a large sample size here, but it's definitely a real challenge that we all face. That's just part of being alive in 2020. And the last thing is inconsistencies and giving up. If you don't have a good system, if you don't have a good productivity system, you will suffer from inconsistency. One week you'll be super motivated and dedicated, the next week you won't. So you need to habitualize a lot of these tactics we're going to talk about today. That's when it's giving up. I was listening to a venture capitalist talk about how he decides what CEOs to invest in. And his number one thing, besides, of course, the value of the idea in the business, is if that CEO seems like they're the person who is going to not give up no matter what. Someone who's fully dedicated to what they're doing and their cause in the world. And so all of the system that I'm going to give you guys, this can help us get through all of these 5 points here. And hopefully allow us to be more successful and build better things in the world. So, big picture overview of the operating system. The cornerstone of this operating system is called our 3P weekly. This is a 60-minute maximum weekly review that we do at the start of every week. And we call it 3P because there's 3 sections in it: pause and check in with yourself, prioritize your business tasks, and then plan. So put the prioritizations on your calendar for the upcoming week. If you don't do this, none of the rest of the system works. So this is really, really important. We're going to spend most of the time today talking about what this review looks like. So in the pause section, we're also going to systematically rate our performance in very specific categories. This is going to help inform what routines, or as we call at Embedded Together, our small daily practices, like what habits, what small daily practices can we choose to implement that are going to help us grow in a very targeted way, right? Because there's no one perfect diet, right? There's no one perfect morning routine. There's only individuals with individual needs. So by walking through our system, you'll know where your deficiencies are, and you'll have a better idea of how you can improve in those ways. Then we'll move on to the plan section, which is where we plan our weekly sprints using a calendar system with block time. And probably my favorite thing is how we approach that block time. So I'm going to share with you guys today a hack for getting into the flow state while you're working. That's going to help you maximize your efficiency when you do sit down, like I did in Morocco a few months ago, to do some work. And then the last thing, and this is also really important to me, is how do you develop an accountability system? There's far too often we try to do things alone. We try to do things by ourselves, and that's not how humans are wired, right? We need to have community. We need to have support. And truly, like, the wisdom you find in a human is probably the most valuable thing in the entire world, right? So if you're not using peer coaching, if you're not going through your struggles with friends, with peers, with mentors, you are leaving a lot of productivity and a lot of life quality on the table. Okay, so that's the overview. And again, you know, if you guys have any questions, feel free to jump in, or comments, feel free to throw them in the chat. Okay, so starting with the cornerstone of the operating system is this 3P weekly review that we do. And like the title says, this is the key to it all. If you don't do this, I mean, there's not much for you here. So, and a lot of you are probably already doing this. And so feel free to take what we learn here and complement your systems. But I think that what we learned here, it's really important to remember, can be remixed, can be repurposed to fit you as an individual best. However, you know, everything I'm going to present you complements itself. So if you don't have a productivity system, I would encourage you to adapt everything I'm going to teach and then make changes as you need to, but not until you've kind of habituated the process first. So in the 3P weekly, we do a pause. It's some targeted journaling to check in with our intention, and also some targeted ratings to see how we're performing mentally, physically, and from a productivity standpoint. Next thing we do is we prioritize. So we need a system for comparing all projects equally, and we're going to use revenue as the rubric to compare them all. Revenue is the lifeblood of your business, and there's no real way around that. So this is how we're going to decide what's most important for our business. The last thing is we're going to plan. We're going to get them onto our calendar, and you do this every week, ideally at the beginning of your week. So for me, I love doing them on Sundays. It can be a really nice ritual, you know, make some like tea or coffee or have a cocktail, you know, make it fun, right? Make it a chance for you to check in with yourself and plan what you're going to do for the rest of the week. 60 minutes is what I give myself, but you know, when you get in the swing of this, you can run through this in 20 minutes, you know, 15 minutes. And I just gotta say, like, if you take the time to organize and work through this at the beginning of your week, it's gonna radically transform how your week feels. Because instead of just meeting the week head on and responding or reacting to it without a plan, you know exactly what you're gonna do that week. You know when you're gonna do it, and you know why it's the most important thing for you to do. So it is gonna save a lot of mental capacity, and it's going to help you deal with decision fatigue. Okay, so getting to the first part of our 3P weekly, that's the pause. And so what we do is we are going to go through 3 simple journaling prompts. And again, these are designed to help us cultivate this intention in the age of distraction. After we finish those journaling prompts, we're gonna rate ourselves in key performance categories. This is going to help us optimize and also find where our biggest weaknesses are, and as a result, our biggest opportunities for growth. So let me open up this. So this is an example of what we use in Better Together. So we use a lot of accountability groups that use these tools to help our side hustlers be more productive and to stick to their dreams, really. So here's an example of our pause journal. And you're welcome to use our tool. You're welcome to use your own notebook. What's most important is these questions. And of course, you can tweak the questions with what resonates with you, as long as it keeps the spirit of digging into your intention and making sure you're aligned with it. So the first thing we ask our group members Better Together is, what are you excited to create in the upcoming week? So a lot of us, I think men especially, often will not tap into the emotion that can be so powerful. So if you're going through your week kind of as a drone, you're not excited about it, it's a totally different quality. And it's going to prevent you from being someone who's lighthearted and just creating and just joyful about where they're going. So a quick little prompt to get you hopefully reconnected to that excitement. Next thing is, what can I do to be more aligned with my vision for life and the person I want to be? This is a really powerful question, because it's asking you directly, are you living your intention? And if you're, maybe the answer is yes, and you just like move on. But often there's some little tweaks we can do week after week just to help us feel more fulfilled and more aligned with our visions for ourselves, and as a result, our visions for what we want to see in the world. And the last question we ask is similar to the last one, and I love this question. So it's, what do I want to see more of in the world, and what do I want to see less of? And so answering this question is so important to me. Like when I sit down to work on Better Together, like what I want to see less of in the world is divisiveness, polarization, fighting that's unnecessary. So what I want to do as a result is create something that solves this problem, that brings people closer together, helps them support each other, across borders in political and racial and religious lines. And so answering this question can really help inform how you would like your business to show up in the world. So after that, we move on to our little ratings. I'm gonna switch back to my slides here. Instead of walking you guys through our digital tool, I'll just show you a high level of the categories that we rate ourselves in every single week. I think a lot of these are really self-explanatory, so I won't go too deep into any of them unless there's a question. But we wanna look at 3 main categories of life: physical health, mental health, and productivity. So physical health, I think, is really straightforward. I don't think there's a lot of explanation needed for any of those categories. Mental health is the same. And I think for us, it's really important that joy and self-love are high on this list of things that we track. There's not a real purpose to working super hard into building a business if you're not doing it with love and joy. And if you're not, there's a good chance that you're not building the thing that you really want to be building. So watching these categories is very, very important. So the last one, productivity, this could use a little bit of unpacking. So I'll go through each of these. So the first one is internal accountability. So that is, how do we feel a deep sense of purpose and accountability to produce something because of a higher purpose, a community, a family? Like, do we feel internally a deep need to produce whatever we're working on? The second one is external accountability, right? This is a lot more straightforward. We're all used to this one. I think my favorite example is, if you have a shitty boss at work who is gonna get pissed if you don't finish something, you're gonna get it done, right? Because you don't want to deal with that. This talk was a really good external accountability date for me, because I knew, okay, I had to finish the ebook, I had to get some slides together. So it helped me kind of get things done faster than I might have otherwise. I want to let it go out a couple more weeks. And future identity. So I struggled with whether or not this one would go into mental health or into productivity. But I think at the end of the day, this is a productivity subcategory, because your future identity is, do you know with certainty who you want to become? And a big portion of the person we become is what we do in the world. What do we create? So how clear are you on who you want to be, what you want to create? And then system adherence. So this is a favorite thing of mine to track too, and I don't see this done in much other productivity systems. You rate yourself on whether or not you followed the system, and like, what an important data point. So if you work through this and you're like, my productivity sucked this week, everything else is good, but your system adherence is like a 2 out of 10. Okay, well, let's buckle in your discipline a little bit. Let's get you a little bit more organized. And that's probably all you got to fix. And the last one is the work session flow state. So this ties back into the flow state hack that we'll talk about at the end of today. But we want to kind of track, like, how easily or how frequently are we getting into a flow state? And of course, the flow state is when you're totally immersed in your work, right? Your ego kind of subsides and time kind of changes a little bit. It's a very powerful state, and it's optimal for efficiency. So again, you're welcome to use our tool for this. You're welcome to just take a screenshot of this, or I can send you a PDF. But what you want to do when you're done with the rating is look, what's my lowest score? And then also look at the context.
Andrew, can I interrupt?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, before you go forward, are you going to talk a little bit more about those elements under productivity, or is that kind of, I ask because I'm not sure I understand what system adherence is.
Oh yeah, no worries. So thank you for asking that. So system adherence is, for example, we have the Side Hustlers operating system that I'm showing you guys. We have a weekly review that's part of it. We have prioritization, we have planning our week. And so these are the things that you should know. I need to do these every week to be following my system. So are you taking the time to actually do those things? Or are you just rolling into the week unorganized? Does that clear it up a little bit, Candy?
Yeah, that does. Thank you so much.
No problem. So, okay, you run through these, you just rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. You look for your lowest score, and then you can look at the context of your lowest score. So where we see notes about, physical health, for example, maybe you're like, hey, this week I was in Thailand for the first time, and there's, khao soi everywhere. So everything went out the window, right? So looking at the context is important, because you might see low numbers and be like, it doesn't matter. Like, that was a vacation. That's not important to me. But if it is important to you and it's low, the next question to ask yourself is, what is a small daily practice that I can implement to improve that score? And a good example of this is maybe it's a meditation practice. Maybe it's a journaling practice. Maybe it's a workout practice. There's a lot of things you can do to improve any of these areas of life. And there is experts, more than you can count, right? For every single category here, that know, just they've dedicated their lives to these topics. And so if there's something that you're struggling with, there's someone that has a solution, right? We're not suffering for lack of information. It's just discipline and execution, really. So that's the rating system. And doing the journal and doing this rating system, I mean, you could get through that in 10, 15 minutes. I know it sounds like a lot, because, maybe it's the first time you've been exposed to this or something like this. But really, you just print it out, go through it, boom, and you have some sort of insight into yourself. Okay, so why do we do those ratings, right? It's kind of goofy, but I want you to think of yourself as a mental athlete, right? So if you're training in the gym and you're really dedicated to your area of fitness, you're going to record everything. You're going to record your workouts. But we don't really do that with the mental side of life. And that's very surprising to me. And I think that'll change quickly for a lot of people. But if you notice you're performing low in one area, you got to address it, right? And so some obvious kind of deductions you can make here from looking at your scores. If you're low and downtrending in a mindset category, you're headed for burnout. Stress is winning. Especially if you see that downtrend week after week, you got to do something, or you're going to, one, experience a lot of discomfort, and two, lose that precious time that we talked about. That is our most valuable asset. And number two, like low productivity scores. So typically that correlates to a lack of urgency and clarity. Can also be a lack of, adhering to your organization systems. And again, that's an equal waste of time. Low physical scores, these are really important when we get to the flow state hacks. But reduced energy, reduced stamina, reduced brain power, like these are the things that we're leaving on the table if we don't dedicate ourselves in some capacity to exercise. And the research is just abundantly clear at this point that exercise and BDNF, or the hormone that helps you, or the factor that helps you grow brain cells, are directly linked, right? So if you're not taking care of your body, you're not taking care of your mind, the mind-body, right? It's the same thing. You got to do both. So when you see a low score, like I said, you can see, what do experts recommend, right? There's someone out there who is any of these categories who loves this topic to death, will talk about it until your ears bleed with passion. And that's the person you want to listen to, right? That's the person you want to see, like, what works and what can I implement in my life in a habitual way. So we also, if you use the online pause journal that I briefly showed a minute ago, I'm really excited about this. What we're working on is a system that's going to automatically send you recommendations for how to improve your scores. So what we're doing is building a large database of the best practices in all of these different categories. And if we notice that you're scoring low in a given area, we'll send you an email like, hey, we notice you're scoring high in a fear category. Tim Ferriss has this practice called fear setting, and we want to walk you through it because we think this is going to radically help you in this area. So those are kind of things that we're building. And again, there's no there's no like solves all perfect routine for individuals. What's important to you might not be important to me, and so on. So you got to use this data to build a routine that supports you best. right? We have to stay in top shape if we're going to build what we're trying to build, because let's be honest, super hard, super hard. And there's a lot of competition, a lot of distractions. And here's my favorite nerd friends. I love this emoji. The advanced option for all the ratings, if you really want to nerd out, what you can do is save your ratings week after week, and you can create graphs and run statistical analysis to look for pattern of behavior. And this is what we are grinding on so much better together, is we want to help people get the insights into how they behave cyclically in patterns. And again, you can do all this on your own. There's nothing you need, me for or anyone else for. Just some food for thought if you want to get a little bit deeper into this, if you're the kind of person that's just passionate about optimization. Okay, so we're moving on to the second part of our 3P weekly prioritization. Any questions before I move on? It was kind of a lot, and let me know if there's anything I can help with. I probably should be able to see the chat.
Yeah, there's no questions in the chat so far. I love where you're going so far. I can certainly, personally, I can identify with a lot of those areas where if this equals that, like, yeah, if I actually calculated my score, that's probably the area that's causing the lack of motivation or the time waste or whatever. So I like where you're going with it. Anyone else have any thoughts, comments, questions? All right, let's
awesome.
moving.
Yeah, thank you, Candy, and I'm glad that is resonating with you. There's a lot of insight we can glean from doing these rating systems that a lot of us just don't think about, right? And it's so important to turn your analytical mind to your behaviors when you can. So now we're moving on to the prioritization. And this is, I'm really excited to share this section with you guys specifically. So this is how we choose what to work on in our business. And what happens when we don't, right? What happens when we just go with the flow, which is what so many people seem to want to do for some reason. And it's really important for some parts of life, but when we do that with our business, we waste precious time. Sometimes, especially when you have clients, then everything becomes a fire drill because you haven't planned what you got to do this week, you haven't prioritized your tasks, and you're just responding, constantly putting out fires, constantly keeping your clients happy. That is a recipe for disaster. Maybe worse though is the hustle heads in the wrong direction, right? Maybe you haven't taken the time to think about your week and you just show up and you start working on the wrong thing because it feels good in the moment, but doesn't really serve your larger vision. That is just, months of wasted time can happen that way. And then the last point is you'll also be victim or have the possibility of being victimized by the ulterior motives of clients or internal holders that want you to go a certain way. And maybe it's like a shiny object syndrome, right? Maybe it's there's a client who wants you to do something that's totally out of your normal mission and vision, but because you don't have a clear sense of where you're going, you're going to respond to it because it's maybe it's some short-term money. So we got to be really organized here so we don't fall prey to any of these 4 points here. So how do we do this? We use the revenue rubric, which is essentially just answering the question in a very systematic way. What is the number one project for increasing sustainable revenue with the least amount of time? And I'm super excited about this. So this is adapted from the executive MBA program at UCLA. And how we use the spreadsheet I'm going to show you guys is we have to flatten all of the tasks that we're going to, or that we're considering going with our business. There's so much opportunity out there, especially if you're in the online space, which I'm sure you guys all are. There's more opportunity now than there's ever been before. And I mean, you can go a million different ways. So we have to flatten all of these tasks using revenue to decide what is the best use of our time. The other thing we have to take into consideration is what is the probability that this initiative succeeds, right? Because you can have like an amazing, I'm going to make $1 million, but if the probability that it succeeds is 2%, then when we run the calculation, your present value is actually, like $2,000 or something like that. So let me show you guys this spreadsheet, and I'm more than happy to share this with anyone if you would like a copy of it for your own business. So it looks like a lot, but it's very straightforward once you understand the 5 sections that we're comparing. So the first thing that we want to do is we're going to make sure we have a clear vision statement. This, you guys should know this, especially if you're a business owner, like the back of your hand. What's your vision for the world? What are you trying to build? And then your mission statement is a little bit more specific, right? So it's like, how are you going to get there, right? So I guess a good example, like for Better Together, my company, the vision is more human connection and better relationships that are supporting. The mission statement is we're going to get there through, software tools and small groups. And so once we have those 2 things defined, we're going to see if any of our potential projects are going to pass our first little checkpoint here, which is alignment, right? So this gets back to intention, which we were talking about a lot earlier. So number 1, here's a potential project we could be working on in our business. Is this task in line with your vision and mission? Very simple. And if the answer is no, great. You've saved a ton of time going down a path that would have just been an utter waste of time. So yes, okay, great. So once we know that, we're going to start to consider the revenue that this project could generate for our business. And let me also back up by saying this is a very kind of cold analytical view of business. And it's assuming that all the projects that you put on here are already resonating with your heart and where you want your business to go. So assuming that checkpoint's passed, then we can take a cold analytical look and just look at the revenue, because revenue is everything in business, for better or for worse. Okay, so when we compare the revenue, we have to flatten these things. And so we can just go down the row, very straightforward. What's the time in months it's going to take to generate the cash that you think this project could give to your business? So yeah, 1 month for this row 6 here. What is the resulting payment? If it's just one payment, or the resulting savings? Cool, very straightforward. Number 2, what is the resulting monthly payment or savings if it is a recurring saving or a revenue stream? And then lastly, what is the expected length of your revenue if it's a recurring stream? So for a lot of business owners, this would be considered like your churn rate, right? So if you have a subscription model, how long do you maintain clients for before they churn out and you get some new ones? And so some of these are going to be blank. Sometimes we won't know, but for the ones that we do know, we're going to fill in everything. And everything we do in the revenue rubric here it's about accuracy. It's not about precision. Okay. So we don't need to know exactly down to the dollar how much revenue something could generate. We want to use the same sort of conservative estimate that we'd use for every project that we're comparing. And when you're trying to estimate the time until you generate the project, until it's completed, how many months it'll take, add an additional month to it, because it's probably going to take a lot longer than you think. So the most important thing is that you're treating every project in the same way, with the same mindset, whether it's a contracted mindset, or it's an abundant, I'm going to get this mindset. Treat everything the same. Okay, so once we've got our revenue down for that project, we're going to look at our costs. So very straightforward. Is there any upfront cost to performing this task? Is there any monthly cost? And is there a number of months that you'd have to pay it? So for most things, if there's a monthly cost, say you're contracting out for the work, typically monthly costs and number of months are going to be the same. But sometimes they might not be if it's an upfront payment, or if it's like a leveraged task that you're doing, you have a longer term to repay it. So once we've put everything in these 2 sections here, we're going to come to our net present value. And so this is the calculation that is going to help us flatten everything. right? So now we can look like, oh, wow, amazing. Okay, I can see where all these projects would have gone in terms of revenue. And I have a really clear idea of what a potential thing could profit over the course of time. And we calculate this using a 5% interest rate. Because what we're saying is, if we had this money, how much would it be worth if we were growing it at a 5% interest rate? So if we had that money, instead of putting it into our business, we put it into, some sort of saving vehicle, what would the net present value of it be? And so that's how we find these prices here. You can tweak this a lot if you, maybe you're an investor and you're like, well, my money's worth 12% or something crazy. You can tweak this. The next thing we do is we want to calculate or give it a probability of success, right? Where 1 is 100%. What is our probability of success? It's just our best guess. We don't have to be, we don't have to be precise, just our best guess. And that's going to greatly reduce, the expected total benefit, right? So we had something that at a net present value, we thought was worth about $46,000, but we thought it was a 40% probability of success. Therefore, we're saying it's about an $18,000 worth of net present value. We're just going to further we're just going to get a tiny bit more granular with this. We're going to estimate the number hours of labor that we would have to do. And then we're going to divide that by the total benefit, and we're going to come to a total benefit per hour. So really, really straightforward. Just come in here, just plug in the numbers, and this will automatically prioritize everything for you based on revenue. We have a clear winner here at 451 in this example. And so if you're struggling with like all the different ways you could take your business, throw all your ideas on here, and this will help you really, really come to a clean and sober understanding of what is the best thing from a revenue perspective. And I know the revenue perspective doesn't always feel good, because sometimes there's a lot of baggage sometimes associated with money. Sometimes, we want to do things just from like a place of just, I guess, post creation, which is totally fine. But the bottom line fact is that revenue is the lifeblood of your business. If you can't figure out the revenue, you have no chance of becoming, stopping being a side hustler and being just a full-time entrepreneur. It's not going to happen. You got to figure this out. So, shoot me a message after this if you'd like a copy of this. More than happy to provide it to you guys. Okay, so I know there's a lot. Before we go back to the slides, is there anything you guys want to poke on in this spreadsheet here?
I'll make a couple of comments. I've seen this spreadsheet before, and I keep telling myself I need to use it. For me in business, I feel like a lot of times profit is a dirty word. And I don't think that my audience feels like profit is a dirty word to them. They realize I'm a business and know I need to make money in order to continue the business. But for me, sometimes it just feels, I don't know, it feels slimy, or it feels like I shouldn't be doing it. So having something like this, and I posted in the comments, having a business that makes a profit actually makes the business more able to provide more in other ways for the customer or the community or whatever it might be. So I have to constantly remind myself of that. But I love this tool, and I need to integrate it into my work, because I feel like if I were able to actually sit down and say, okay, this is where I need to make money, and then when I do that, then I can do these other things that maybe aren't so income producing, but really bring me a lot of joy or bring a lot of value in some other ways. So.
Yeah, it's such a good point. We do, I think, often as a society get wrapped up in, profits all good or all bad. You're kind of binary typically. And it's so true. And especially if you're building a business that is service oriented, the more money you can make, the more people you can help. That's the bottom line. And I guess a little side note too, like if you're selling something and you don't think it makes people's lives better, right? If you don't think that by them giving you money, you're actually improving their lives, then you probably got to spend a little bit more time in the intention side of things, thinking about what you're going to build, because it shouldn't be a dirty word. It should be a beautiful exchange where you're actually helping someone. So yeah, I think that's a really, really good, important point. And that's it from the price. Oh, what's up? Question. Okay, let's see what we got. When it's an ongoing revenue generator, that's a really good question. So what I would do is I would just give it a very big number. I would give it essentially as big as you expect your business to continue, right? So if you think that something's going to ongoingly create revenue for you indefinitely, that wins, right? That wins. So play with the numbers, give it your best guess. Maybe you have a plan to scale your business or to kind of get out of it. Maybe you have plans to change direction. So you're the best, arbitrator for how long you think that revenue stream can go on. So, but give it a big number, a lot bigger than the rest, because that time is really, really important in terms of sustainability. But the other thing to take into consideration that, and thank you for that question, by the way, the other thing to take into consideration is how many hours are you going to put into that, right? So it's one thing to have indefinite revenue, but it's another thing entirely to have indefinite revenue with also an indefinite amount of labor, right? So you got to make sure that those two are really, really balanced, and you're giving yourself, a really fair estimation of what you think it could produce. Let me know if that didn't answer your question. Okay.
Hi, sorry, I can't use my video because I'm not in a position, but that was very helpful. I think that the spreadsheet's awesome. I haven't seen it before, and I really think this is the missing piece in addition to accountability. Really excited to hear more about your small groups. So thank you.
Cool. I'm really glad to hear that, and more than happy to share the spreadsheet with you. Okay, so we're moving into the last piece of our 3P weekly. Okay, so we did the pause, we did the prioritization. Now we're going to plan our week. So the first thing we want to do, this is really straightforward, is we want to break down whatever is the number one task from our revenue rubric spreadsheet we just went through. We're going to break that number one task or project into big milestones. So, you want to use some sort of project management tool. There's a billion of them. There's probably been like 5 released since we started this talk, but like some of my favorites are Notion, Trello, and Asana, with my favorite being Notion. If you haven't used it, it's amazing. It's kind of an all-in-one sort of tool. You can take notes, you can do documentation for your business to share with your employees or contractors. You can do sprint planning like we're doing kind of in this screenshot here. It's fantastic. And as far as I know, it's still free, surprisingly. So what you want to do is break your number one task into 3 to 10 tickets, right? So here's an example of like something we're using. Oh, you guys can't see my screen? Oh, dear Lord. Okay, hang on one sec. Oh, that's good too. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, let me know if you guys can see again. Yeah, okay, cool. Oh, wait. There we go. Okay, so here is the kind of like the screenshot I was referencing. So you want to break your number one task, your biggest revenue generating potential, into 3 to 10 milestones. These are the big like wins that when they're all completed, your project is done. So here's an example of something we're using Better Together. Really simple. And then inside these, you can get as detailed as you want, especially if you're handing it off to a contractor or to an employee to work on. You want these to be ultra detailed, but at least you want to break it down into the high level things if you're just working on it yourself. So we break it down into these milestones. Great, we know where we're going. Next up, we're gonna plan our week. So I'm sure everyone is using a calendar here. If you're not, start. It's really, really important. But what we do is we're going to take what we just prioritized and we're just gonna plan our week. Really, really simple. If it's not on your calendar, it's not gonna get done. You gotta use a calendar system. And you don't have to overcomplicate it. These are kind of like the 5 things that I think are really important to have in your calendar. Again, you can always tweak this for what suits you best. But the number one thing is you want to work in blocks of either 50 or 80 minutes. And here's the trick, with recovery, right? And this is something I constantly am struggling with, but it's not just being so hooked onto your computer or whatever you're doing for work, taking a moment to go recover, to go on a walk or whatever. And this is going to be a major component of our flow state hack that we're going to get to in a little bit. You have to recover. The second point is the number one task is the first thing you do. So if you're a side hustler, if you have a day job and you're like this calendar where the biggest chunk of your day is someone else's time, it's that purple block there, try to structure your life in a way that you can get up before your work has to start, because that's going to, allow you to spend the best time in your day working for you, working for what is really important to you, and not giving that to someone else. I think that's really straightforward. If you're a nomad, definitely take advantage of time zones, right? So right now I'm in Georgia with Candy, and if I, for my day job that I'm leaving really soon, super excited, I don't have to start work until 3:30 p.m. So it's that I have this morning that's just mine, that I can just grind on what is important, what is most important to me. Not that my day job's not important to me, but what is most important to me gets my prime attention when I first wake up. So break it down into tasks. Number 1 task, number 2 tasks, find a block time that works for you. The other important thing, I think this is vital, is have some sort of exercise built into your calendar. Maybe it's 2 times, 3 times a week, yoga, running, whatever, stretching, do something, get on your calendar, stick to it. And the last thing is stop time. So this is a big one for a lot of us strivers and entrepreneurs. Like, we always want to go, go, go. Are you stopping ever? Like, do you have time to spend with your family, with your friends, to have a life outside of work? Have a stop time, stick to it. And if you're living with a partner, tell your partner when your stop time is, so you don't get sucked into the trap of just working indefinitely, which is so easy for so many of us to do. And the last thing is the orange boxes here. So that is your small daily practices. Those are your routines, right? Those are the things that help you boost those pause scores higher and stay mentally sharp as a mental athlete that's building something amazing. And some people love doing their morning routine every single day. Not for me. If that's what you want to do, go for it. What I recommend is do your morning routine 4 out of 7 days during the week. Do it the majority of the week. Don't worry about being perfect. Don't worry about doing it every day. And the reason for that is, one, if you have a side hustle, like I said a ton of times in this, your time is so limited, and it's so important that you're using it as much of it as you can to build your business. If you add another 2 hours or maybe it's the 30, an hour of routines onto Wednesday and Thursday, you're going to lose 2 insanely valuable chunks of time that you could be doing stuff. So do it the majority of your week. Don't worry about doing it all. Just what I recommend. But you got to find what works best for you. So that's really straightforward, right? Anyone can do that. If you're not using a calendar, you really got it. And again, it applies perfectly for entrepreneurs too, because then you just remove the giant purple chunk and put some nice, lovely gray boxes in there. So really straightforward. I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably already using a calendar system. If you already are, I do encourage you to think at least about how you're scheduling exercise, routines, and if you're scheduling recovery. At least think about those 3 if you're already using a calendar. Okay, recap. So the 3P weekly is the cornerstone of this operating system. If you don't do it, nothing else is going to matter. Like, this is where you cultivate intention, you plan your week, you prioritize your business, you get ready for the upcoming week, so you don't have to make a ton of decisions. You can maximize your mind because you know what to do. You sit down, you know what you have to do, just execute. So couple high level things you want to check on is make sure you're always working. If you follow this, you will always be working on the #1 revenue generating priority. So I do recommend you stick to this. So help you reduce decision making and mental fatigue, right? I think that's a big thing everyone's hearing about now is decision making fatigue. You get to the end of the day and you're just like eating ice cream because you spent all your morning trying to figure out what to work on. That's a real thing. Last one is maximize your time and efficiency in order to maximize your probability for success. Ultra important. You don't want to just be a leaf in the wind when it comes to business. And so this 1 hour, right? This 60 minutes maximum that you can do once a week with a cocktail is going to radically transform your experience week after week. Just a little bit of planning goes a long, long way. Okay. So I'm going to pause there and see if there's anything you guys want to chat about before we move on to our flow state hacks here.
I asked a question, and then there's another question in the chat as well. Tips on sticking with the calendar. I don't know if that's something that you're going into next week, and if so, just pause me until next week. But I find that for me, I use my calendar, I'll put things on it, and I do really, really well for like 2 weeks. And then I slowly drop off of it and then quit using it altogether. So sticking to that is a really difficult thing for me.
Yeah, I'm sure pretty much everyone on this call can relate to that. I mean, so again, I think this really ties back to accountability. I think community and accountability is the missing piece, especially if everyone is using the same system. So what we do at Better Together is like you pair off every quarter with one accountability buddy, and you guys should be showing each other your calendar. And actually what we do is in the top of the quarter, we all make big milestones for what we're gonna do that quarter. And we invite our buddies to the meeting so they know when we have a deadline. So things like that are really gonna help. The other thing too is like coming back to your other question, Candy, was system adherence, right? So looking at your weekly review, are you sticking to it or not? This has got to be really, really important. I mean, I think this happens a lot in personal development. Like we just listen to things and it feels good, but we don't implement it. So it is tricky. And I think it's something you have to come back to continually until that habit's there. So kind of what I recommend is find a really good accountability buddy. It can be with Better Together. It can be one of your friends, anyone, a really, really good accountability buddy who's not going to let you off the hook. Both of you guys commit to doing something like this and check in week after week for 3 months. If you guys do it for 3 months, it's a habit. So that's what I would recommend, how I would recommend approaching this.
Great, thank you. And then Christian asked, is the 3P time part of the daily routine on Monday?
That's a great question. So let me pull this back up. So what I do with the 3P is I actually, for me personally, I can do it on Sunday. So you see like 11 a.m. Sunday, I've got a lazy morning, it's Sunday. And that's when I like to work on this, and it's just one thing I do on the weekends, Saturday solely off, and get ready for the upcoming week. So that's what I would recommend. Small daily practices are more of, really going to vary person to person. Meditation is a big one for a lot of people. Journaling is a big one. Saying your goals out loud and getting excited is a big one for a lot of people. So you can tailor those small daily practices to what suits you best. But I would recommend doing the 3P weekly before Monday comes, because what can happen is Monday comes, we got a client that needs something, right? And then instead of taking that time to plan, we're now in reaction mode. We're taking care of what our client wants, and we're really missing all of the beautiful organization that can happen if we just take a little bit of time on Sunday. So that's what I would recommend.
Another question, do you build your calendar weekly, monthly, quarterly? And do you recalibrate the calendar weekly? And that comes from Philip.
It's a great question, Philip. So what I'd recommend is building your calendar weekly. So you do the 3P weekly and you, just set for the week. And why I recommend doing that is let's not overcomplicate it. If you want to, you can get a lot more complex with this. But as Candy pointed out, most people don't stick to their calendar. So let's make this as simple as possible. You do this on Sunday for that upcoming week, and that's it. If there's something big you need to plan for, like maybe there's a big project you have due in 2 or 3 months, sure, you can set that up and kind of backwards calculate. But let's keep it simple. Let's do a week in advance. So that's how I think this is best approached.
Also, when you're sticking to your calendar, I think it's relevant to think about like when you're doing all of the Better Together questionnaires and you're seeing where you're lagging the most, then you can plan your week on like where you need to give more attention. And that's going to help you stick to the calendar every following week because you feel probably like it helped you, and also probably more in balance, which usually when we're in balance, we do things that matter, like following our calendar. So in that way, I think it's like a really good support system to keep you on track and also make sure that you follow through with those things that you need to do to be better.
So it's a really good point, right? So that's where the ratings come into effect. And again, this can just be something that supports you holistically as a person, not just your business. It supports you in all areas of your life. It helps you get your physical health, your mental health together. I think, I forgot the quote, I'm probably gonna butcher it, but it's something like, I thought I was an entrepreneur, but I was really just, in personal development or something like that. I totally forgot the quote, but you understand the spirit, right? We can allow these challenges to help us become much more developed people. And so, yeah, if you stick to the ratings and you adjust your calendar, your small daily practices to help you improve, it's going to become a kind of a virtuous cycle, right? Where it's going to feed into itself and you're going to be like, wow, this, feeling better. I got to do this. And you'll get to the point where a lot of, some of the people that we work with and Better Together, they feel like when they don't do the small daily practices, they're like, oh my God, like I feel like, a fish out of water. Like it just can become such a part of your life that just helps you so much. And it's kind of like eating really healthy, I think. Like when you start eating super healthy and then you like kind of have a cheat day, you get some pizza or something, it kind of like throws you totally off and you're like, wow, that was poison. I've been eating poison for so long. I think it's the same sort of thing with organization, right? So when you're used to being organized, then when you're not, you really feel it and you're like, wow, I was living like that forever. I had no idea. So yeah, it becomes really self-enforcing, especially after about 3 months when you've really dialed it in and made it a really strong habit. Okay, I'm assuming there's no more questions. Feel free to stop me if there are. So going to our flow state hacks. This is so much fun. Hope you guys are excited. Question time. So what is the flow state? Does anyone have experience with the flow state, an idea what it is? Maybe you went bungee jumping. Can anyone share? Okay, fair enough. So flow state, what is it? So I think of it as being totally immersed in whatever you're doing, right? You are in it, your ego is gone, you kind of forget about yourself, your life outside of what you're doing. You are fully immersed. I used to love, I still do, but I don't anymore, but I love riding motorcycles. And because it puts you in that flow state, like you're worried about, you got to be careful, right? There's a danger here, that an urgency that forces your mind to be immersed in what's happening. It's very stimulating. There's a lot going on. It demands all of your attention. So you get so immersed, right? And this is why so many people are so addicted to like extreme sports, because you just can't typically get that kind of immersion in life without some sort of urgency. So we're going to find a way to hack that urgency to help us get into more of these types of states when we sit down to work, which is kind of hilarious when you think about it. Like, oh, I'm going to be like in the same kind of state of when I bungee jump when I go to work. We'll get close, right? So it's not going to be exactly the same. But so what is the flow state? Here is what, I can never say this guy's name. If anyone can, please correct me, but I'm going to say Nahalu. This guy is the original person who investigated flow. He has this amazing book called Flow that I highly recommend if you haven't read it. He lists these 8 different points for what defines a flow state. My favorite are effortlessness and ease, time transforming. Like sometimes I'm sure you guys can, relate to, like, sometimes you sit down to work and then it seems like a moment goes by and you look at the clock and you're working for like 2 hours. It's like that transformation of time because you're so immersed. Clarity of goals, complete concentration, a feeling of control. And that is what the flow state is. Sure, it's kind of cliche now, but I'm sure you guys have heard of it. At least I hope you have. And so what do we do to help bring that state into our normal working sessions? So here's the hack. There's 7 steps here. And the first one is you have to know exactly what your desired outcome is for the work session. And this is where all of our planning and the 3P review comes into effect here, because you've broken your task down into milestones. You know that it's so important. You probably even have like a $sign like attached to the task. There is an urgency and you know exactly what you need to do. This is where the planning comes in to help us hugely as we start our week. Number 2, decide in advance how long you're going to work for. Like in the calendar example I shared, those were 50-minute blocks. Find what works best for you. You can use 80, you can use 110. I like these numbers because they give us about a 10-minute recovery period, which we talked about briefly before. Okay, so we know what we're going to work on. We know how long we're going to work. The next step is we set a timer for that exact amount of time, and we're going to honor that timer. We're not going to let it go off and keep working. This is super important. Number 4, my favorite step. You're going to journal for about 1 to 3 minutes, not a lot of time, about why this task is really important to you with as much emotion as possible. So you should write with passion about why this little goal, this little task that we're doing right now fits into a bigger vision that you have. And what I found to be most powerful when I do this is talk about how finishing this goal is going to impact your family, your partner, those you serve, yourself, the world, right? So with emotion, write about why this is so good, why this is something you need to do. And what this is all going to do between the timer, the certainty, and the emotional intensity, this is going to create that urgency that we need. When we sit down to work, if we run through these things, our brain's like, this is the most important thing I can do. There's no, right, Facebook, right? There's none of that. It doesn't matter because you've laid it out very clearly why this is so important, and we have a fixed window of time. If you don't have that fixed window of time, your brain will be like, yeah, this is super important, but I got like 3 hours, so I'll probably watch some YouTube or something, right? And that's when you give into that distraction and your intention goes out the window. So boom, boom, boom. How long? Set a timer, journal. That's it. Go. And then the couple tricks here, the gotchas at the end is, and this is my Achilles heel, stop when the timer expires. So when it goes off, that's it. You can always pick up that task again. It's fine. It's not going anywhere. And the reason for this is if you don't listen to that timer, your brain is going to know, right? You're going to know. You're going to sit down to work again. You set a timer. Your brain's like, oh, that's a cool timer. Like, I don't care. So you have to listen to this timer. You have to give yourself this deadline. And I'm sure you guys have heard of, what's the principle? I want to say, I forgot the name of it. There's a principle where you will contract or expand your work to fit the time that you give it. So this is really important, and you'll find yourself being a little bit more efficient. You'll be a SWAT team when you go to work. The last step here is the recovery, and we're going to linger on this topic for a little bit in the next slide, but make sure you perform a recovery action, because if you work with this much intensity, you're going to get a lot done, but you're also going to be kind of drained, right? This is applying your entire being to what you're doing. So the recovery action is really important. And a little note at the bottom here, if you are like me and you like to listen to music while you work, make sure that while you're trying to use a flow state hack, that you're listening to familiar music. Because if you're listening to like a new album, you're like, oh my God, the Run the Jewels just came out, and you're listening to that, you're gonna stop what you're doing to evaluate the music. especially if you really like it. You're like, oh, wow, it's amazing. And that's going to throw you totally out of that state of mind. So try to listen to a familiar playlist or two that you really, really like. And I guess a little note too is you don't want to use this for everything, right? Like if you got to answer emails or something, or you got to, you know, I don't know, do some kind of stupid administrative tax or work, or like your taxes. Yeah. You don't necessarily want to do this. You want to save this for like the really important big things, like the big tasks that are going to feed into that number one revenue generating task that we figured out. So use it sparingly. It's really powerful, and you'll get better and better at it as you do it. You'll start to notice, like, you'll observe your mind kind of getting out of that flow state, and you're like, oh, come back in. And the more you practice it, the better you'll get. So highly recommend it. It's super fun. And the last thing is recovery. Oh,
I have a quick question before we move on to recovery. So I like to work in 50-minute sprints, but I find that one of two things happens. I either am sometimes, which is a good thing, I guess, I finish the task before my 50 minutes, so I immediately will roll into another task that may or may not be able to be completed in that 50 minutes. So I'm not sure if I should stop my productivity time and take that break, or just keep plowing through. And the other thing is sometimes when you're not done with a project, but you've got a good flow going, you're feeling good, you're getting there, but you're not quite done when that timer goes off. For me, if I stop, then it's hard for me to get back into that flow sometimes. So any thoughts around that? Those
yeah,
two?
Absolutely. I mean, so that last one.
Oh,
am I muted?
Sorry, that was me. I muted you instead of me.
No worries. So yes, the last point especially I resonate with. Like, it's so hard when you're feeling good, you're in that groove, to stop working. And I guess what I would advise is you have to be discerning, right? So if you're using this specific hack that I'm sharing with you guys, stop. Definitely stop. Because if you don't stop, this hack is no longer going to work, because like I said, your brain's going to not respect the urgency. It's not going to respect the timer. If you're not using this hack and you're in a groove, you know, personally, I'm probably going to keep working, you know, even if it breaks my calendar a little bit and I got to move things around, you know, that's okay. The timer is super important in this hack system here. The danger, of course, though, is if we don't take those recovery breaks, we can start getting more and more worn down, burnt out, or not recovering. So you got to really know where you stand physically and mentally, and kind of use your best judgment. But definitely stop if you're trying to get into a flow state, is what I would recommend. For your other question, which I have to remember. So if you
finish early.
Got it. Okay. So if you finish early, what I like to do is stop, take that recovery, and then just slide up your calendar. Start that new task. Because what's going to happen otherwise is, if you don't do that, when you start that new task, you're going to run into what you were just talking about, which is where the timer goes off and you're not done because you started later. In which case, you're going to definitely abuse the clock. It's not long. The timer's not going to matter anymore because you have to get this thing done. You're in a groove. So don't set yourself up to fight with the timer. Take that break. Go on a walk. Have a cigarette. Do whatever you want to do, and enjoy that win. Enjoy that victory. Give yourself that pat on the back. That's what I recommend. And again, it's not something I always stick to. It's a really hard thing for us strivers, is to be disciplined with our time when we're in a groove. But ideally, that's what I think we should all be striving for.
I think you should set a timer for exactly how long you think it's going to take to do the thing, or how long you should take to do the thing. So that way, like, if it's going to take 2 hours, like, give yourself a 2-hour timer. Because once you get into flow, you can make that last for 4 hours if you are like really into something. So it's more to, at least the way I've seen it before, is like, it's more to just like force yourself to do the whole thing while you're in that mind, like, headspace. rather than being like, oh, I could do this, la-di-da, you know? So try to like choose exactly how long you think it should take you. And that's going to probably make your brain do it in that long.
Totally agree.
Andrew, I also have a question.
Sure.
So what happens when you have to facilitate or coordinate, or you have to chat with a lot of people? Do you plan a time frame only for that, and then you turn off the notifications such that you can focus on your only one task, or how does it work?
So yeah, it's really tricky when other people are in the mix. I think the good rule of thumb is intention in the age of distraction is a superpower. So if you can close off your notifications, if you have that luxury, a lot of us don't because we have Slack, we have Teams, you know, people expect urgent, this crazy instant satisfaction culture we have, right? So if you can, yeah, turn them off and make sure you can be totally present with whatever person you're working with or team you're working with. Not always possible. I totally understand that. I would not recommend using this hack for getting into a flow state unless you're going to be speaking or teaching or doing something where you know, you're not going to be constantly, I guess, like interrupted, and it's better if you're in a really strong groove. So again, you got to use the discernment. I don't think it works well for like team environments so much. More for when you got that time and now you get to go work on the task and it's you or you instructing people.
Got it. Thanks.
Thanks, Gabby. Intention in the age of distraction is a superpower. That is the quote that we go for. Okay, so moving on to our recovery section. So this is the most important thing that no one does. And okay, so entering the flow state is amazing, but it's taxing, right? If we're gonna use this little flow state hack, we're gonna be so immersed in what we're doing because there's so much urgency, we're gonna use a lot of what's going on up here. So make sure you build recovery into your work week. I think without fail, if you don't build recovery into your work sessions, you're gonna burn out, especially if you're using this flow state hack. It's just gonna happen. You're gonna get in the groove, like, you know, Candy was talking about. You're gonna have those days where you just stare at the computer for 4 hours and then maybe you're gonna do it again, you know? So make sure you're planning recovery. Examples of what is not recovery, right? And this is what a lot of us fall into: social media, browsing the web, or in general using technology at all. That is not recovery. It feels good because you can kind of just, I guess, in a way, turn your brain off. There's still so much information and stimulation happening that you're not giving yourself the break that you deserve. So make sure that you're really intentional about use of technology when you go into the recovery. I would recommend keeping your phone as far away from you as possible. Video games, another one. Like, I mean, the pace of most video games are so intense right now that you have to be so immersed. In fact, video games are one of the best ways to get into a flow state because they're so demanding and the reaction speed is so quick. Don't do that. Try also not to play strategic games like chess. I'm a huge chess fan. I often use chess as a recovery, and it's a terrible, terrible habit because you're not giving your you're not giving your brain the break that it really needs. So instead, what should we do? Go for a walk, talk to a friend, read a fiction book, clean your apartment, do a little meditation, or something that was really good during quarantine, do a light little HIIT workout, okay? And so I recommend just something moving your body. We're slouched and sitting all day. Let's go for a walk. You know, let's do something that's really easy on our mind that lets us just unplug. And cleaning is great too, right? You just go around the house and do some chores, 10 minutes. That's all you need. But again, you're gonna find what works for you. I recommend 10 minutes. You might be a 15-minute person. You might be a 5-minute person. Find what works for you and stick to it. And make sure you're taking breaks. So the alternative approach, this is a little controversial, but probably not for this group, is substances that can get you here. I think this is really not ideal for several reasons. One, you then become dependent on a substance. Two, depending on where you are in the world, there's legality and accessibility issues. But that being said, it can be a good tool if you're in the right environment, if you're open to it, under very specific circumstances. So really popular right now in Silicon Valley is microdosing, typically LSD or psilocybin in very small quantities. Those can be excellent tools for helping you get easily into a flow state. Again, not for everyone, but something that's worth knowing because it's happening. And a lot of people are using these tools. The other one is a hack from the book Stealing Fire by Stephen Kotler, which I highly recommend if you haven't read it. And what he prescribes for getting into flow is 1 cup of coffee that's caffeinated, a very small dose of THC. So please don't read this and be like, okay, cool. Andrew says I should get high all day when I work. No, like the smallest possible amount of THC in a short run, like 1 mile, 1.6 kilometers. And that's going to create the neurochemical cocktail that mimics a flow state that's going to help you really a lot more easily get into it. So again, these are cool, kind of fun tricks to have in your toolkit, but they're not really sustainable. I don't recommend you put your energy here. You kind of break in case of emergency sort of stuff. And specifically with the Stealing Fire hack, you can't expect yourself to do this process between every work session. Maybe if you had some crazy thing you got to get done that's like 3 hours long, 4 hours long, maybe that's a situation where the Stealing Fire hack would be good. But again, these are just tools to have in your toolkit and good things to know about because people are using them. Okay, that's actually it for today. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we do at Better Together. And actually, next week, I think we're going to dive a lot more deeply into how to set up an accountability structure for yourself. And, I'll give you some examples of what we do in Better Together, and you can use that knowledge to go make your own group. Like, you don't have to come hang out with us. You can find your own accountability buddy. I want to lay out all the strategies for you to do this because that's my mission, right? Is to make the world a closer place, to help form these human connections. But I'm just going to close on this for today with kind of a sneak peek into what we do in our hustler support groups. So what we do is we form groups of anywhere between 4 and 10 people. We want to make sure they're not too large so everyone can have a chance to speak, to be heard, have a chance to get feedback from their group. And what we're trying to build is essentially a personal board of advisors for everyone that's in that group. And we try to pair them typically by people that are in the same niches or industries. Oh, was there a question? Okay, cool. So yeah, excuse me, lost my train of thought a little bit, but we want to pair you with people that are going to be your peer coaches. These are people who know what you're working on week after week. They're there to support you. They're there to give good criticisms. And I have this really, I think I brought it. It's one of my favorite quotes from Elon Musk because it's totally true. So really pay attention to negative feedback and solicit it, particularly from friends. Hardly anyone does that, and it's incredibly helpful. And this, to me, kind of the opposite of this drives me crazy, right? Where you can have some really good friends who know what you're working on, but they might be kind of scared to say the wrong thing, right? So when you show them what you're working on, they're probably not gonna be the person that's like, hey, yeah, I think that actually kind of misses the mark. I think it kind of sucks. You could do this, but in a loving way, right? A lot of people don't do that. They're just like, no, it's good. Oh yeah, you're doing amazing. Yeah, keep it up. Yeah. They just don't want to have that awkward conversation because they're scared, right? And because they're afraid, they're not doing you the friendship, they're not doing you the service that you deserve. So really important, and this is what we try to build in Better Together, is people that love each other enough, essentially, to have those tough conversations, to be honest, to be authentic. So small group of people, we are very selective in who we bring in. We wanted it to be people that have these values and these qualities that we were looking for. And what we do in these, specifically in these side hustler support groups, is we help you implement everything we're talked about today in this operating system. We don't want you to, just have some cool knowledge, go off, and then forget about it. Don't implement it. Every single week, we're gonna be like, so hey, how did your 3P review go? So you're gonna have someone to speak to, and someone to hold you accountable week after week. We set weekly goals in our accountability groups. So you're gonna have an entire group to report to. Hey, you set somewhere between 1 and 5 goals that week. Did you do them or did you not? And if not, you should have a reason why. So there's that accountability for the system. There's that accountability for the goals. And then we break down into accountability buddies. This is one of my favorite things. This is a new thing we started doing recently, where we'll pair members off into accountability buddies for the quarter. And we'll have, at the top of the quarter, we'll have like a little dreaming session where we think about like, what do we want to build this quarter, like as individuals. We'll share that with our partner, and then we'll set calendar appointments like I was talking about earlier, and invite our buddies to the appointments. So we have deadlines for those things. They're not just dreams anymore, like they're plans. So that's really fun and exciting for me. And then if you join us, you also have first access to all of our software tools. Some are done, some are under development, but we're really excited about the software side of things because we think this is really going to help people, 1, adhere to the system, and 2, understand their patterns better. So what we have is the pause journal. So that's that little form that I showed you guys earlier. It's free for you guys to use. You guys are more welcome to use it. But we're going to keep on improving that, especially for our paying members. We also have a dashboard that we're working on now that I'm really excited about, which shows you graphs of your different scores week after week. Also helps you see the relationships, but that you might not have known about yourself even between some of these different ratings that we talked about. And then the last thing we do is we're going to send you automated recommendations for small daily practices to boost some of those low numbers up. Like I said, really excited about this side of the business. And so what we charge is $99 a month. For anyone that is here, you do have an offer to join us for 50% off the first 2 months. All you have to do is mention local co-working space in your application, which you can find on our website, or you can just email me, which I'll show you in the next slide. I think I said local. The other thing too is like we understand that different parts of the world have different economic leverage. It's something I've become really sensitive to as I've traveled so much. And so we do support paying in the equivalent amount in a local currency. It's going to take into account the economic system or economic conditions of that country, because we don't want to turn people away. And so, we take all these things in consideration when we're building a community that actually cares about each other. I think there is maybe some questions here. Let me double check.
No questions, just some thank yous, and I posted some contact information for you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So that is all the content that I had outlined for us this week. So this is a 2-part training. So next week we'll dive a little bit deeper into the accountability systems, into the SDPs, morning routines, into the mindset that you need to be successful as a side hustler. So I'm really excited to chat with you guys about that stuff, and it really will kind of tie everything together and complete the whole operating system. But that's it. It's really simple, and I think it's something you guys can all stick to if you have the will. So if there's any other questions, I'm happy to take them.
I want to say thank you. This has been super helpful. I'm excited about part 2, where we can delve into things a little bit more. Anyone have any comments, questions, or things you'd like to see covered next week when Andrew presents next week? Everybody's so quiet.
I know.
All right.
I do have one quick question. I noticed that this was being recorded. Will this recording be available to us to sort of review what's been said, because I'll admit there's a lot of stuff being said. I don't feel like I've absorbed a lot of it.
A lot of content. It's definitely a lot of content. And sorry, I apologize. That's one of the things I generally will mention first and foremost in the meetings, and I completely forgot it today. I do record these sessions unless there's protest against it. I generally will post them on Local's YouTube channel. It's Local Tbilisi on YouTube. You can find it easily. I also, hopefully Andrew will be providing us maybe a short summary article, which we'll post up on the local blog, which will also include kind of some bullet points to follow up on, as well as links to the video and any additional assets that Andrew might provide, like the spreadsheet or links or recommended reading, those sorts of things. So keep your eye out. I'll normally post that in the event, even though on Facebook, even though the event is past. And that tends to just remind those people that had signed up through that. We do have your email, I haven't instituted that yet, but happy to send out a follow-up email with a link to that blog and information as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And hopefully you'll join us next week. Yeah. Any other questions?
Philip in the chat asked if you could have a copy of the pause rating system. So yes, that's going to be in the blog post that I think we'll send out.
Yeah. All right. Great.
It was an amazing presentation. Thank you, Andrew. And
Thank you, Gabby.
Thanks, Gabby. Philip, your internet connection's bad. Did you have any questions other than the pause rating system, it looks like? If so, you can post it in the chat and I'll convey it. I'm super excited. You've got a lot of great tools there, Andrew, and I'm hoping that delving a little bit deeper next week will get me motivated. I say that I do this for the community, but I get so much out of it as well by having all of these sessions and these amazing speakers come on and present, from personal branding to PR strategies and whatnot. I get a lot out of them as well. So really appreciate your time. Thank you to everybody that attended. Your time is valuable as well, and I appreciate you spending it with us. So we'll see you next week, unless Andrew has anything further to add.
That's it. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Candy. I really appreciate it. It was really fun for me. This is the first kind of unveiling of the operating system, and it's going to be an ebook that I'll be releasing soon. So thank you for the opportunity. It was really good practice to share with everyone.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we'll see you next week then. Bye.
Bye, guys.
bye, guys.